Up on your split screen, it's the Mazda 3 and the Acura Integra, and we'll be seeing much more from both of these coming right up as we do a deep dive into the data to help you answer the question, which one should you buy? At the end of the video, I'll tell you which one I'd buy and why that's a tough decision to make, even if having to decide between these two machines is a nice problem to have. But before you make that decision, you'll want to see the rest of this video, which is loaded with useful information and plenty of important math, so let's go. We've got two body styles for the Mazda 3, being the Mazda 3, which is the sedan, and the Mazda 3 Sport, which is the hatchback. Either can be fitted with one of two engine options, specifically a 2.5-liter four-cylinder with 191 horsepower, 186 pounds of torque, and Skyactiv technology with cylinder deactivation to help keep the fuel bill reasonable. The up-level engine choice is a turbocharged version of that 2.5, with 227 horsepower and 310 pounds of torque on regular grade gas. You can feed it 93 octane if you like, and then it's 250 horsepower and 320 pounds of torque instead, so a slight performance gain for running the pricier gas, but this engine is set up from the factory to work with whatever octane level you feed it. Front-wheel drive is standard. All-wheel drive is available on the base non-turbo engine, and standard with the turbo engine, and each and every single model runs a 6-speed automatic. The latest Acura Integra runs a single four-door liftback body style like the original, and under the hood there's a singular engine choice as well. That's a 1.5-liter turbo VTEC four-cylinder, good for 200 horsepower and 192 pounds of torque, and that puts it just ahead of the larger base model Skyactiv four-cylinder non-turbo engine from the Mazda, and leaves Mazda shoppers with the optional Turbo 4 upgrade if you're a bigger fan of torque than revs.
Integra? That sounds very, very familiar.
Actually, the Integra first launched in 1986 to help kick off the Acura brand, and the Integra went on until 2006, 20 years on sale, until it was discontinued. Now it's back. This is the new one, and we have to check it out.
The Mazda 3 starts at $24,100 Canadian dollars, with the GS trim adding further featured content for $26,007, and the GT trim grade going top of the line from $33,000 with the non-turbo engine and front-wheel drive. From there, it's a $4,400 step up to turbo power and all-wheel drive traction, making it $37,004 for a turbo all-wheel drive equipped Mazda 3 GT. And incidentally, that's $1,450 less than the entry price for the Integra's base model, which includes the standard A-Spec appearance package from $38,850. Now, you might just find the Integra a little sparse with the standard infotainment screen instead of the big screen upgrade. And there's just one USB port for charging, and no rear seat cup holders, no stereo upgrade, and no lumbar support for the driver's seat. Stepping up into the Integra Elite A-Spec makes it $44,350 with a far more comprehensive list of features, though it does cost the better part of $7,000 more than the Mazda, and that's with 27 less horsepower and 2 less driven wheels. Thing is, if you're willing to move up into the Elite A-Spec, they'll let you switch the CVT automatic for a 6-speed manual as a $0 option. But you can't do that in the base model Integra, which only comes automatic. So is the sacrifice of 2 driven wheels and a price gap of nearly $7,000 between fully loaded models worth it? Well, it depends, so let's dig into some analysis to help you decide. When it comes to physical dimensions, the Integra is 2.3 inches longer than the Mazda 3. That's 6.3 centimeters if you like, a difference of about 1%. The Integra is also 1.3 inches or 3.3 centimeters wider than the Mazda 3, but the Mazda 3 is 1.4 inches or 3.5 centimeters taller than the Integra. And when it comes to wheelbase, the Integra takes a slight lead by less than half an inch or about 1 centimeter. So to summarize, these two cars have a nearly identical wheelbase, the Mazda is slightly taller, the Integra is slightly wider, and the biggest difference for physical dimensions between these two is the length. When it comes to passenger dimensions, the Mazda 3 takes the lead for front headroom by just under half an inch, or about 1 centimeter if you like. On rear seat headroom, the Mazda 3 takes the lead by 0.9 of an inch, or 2.2 centimeters. Front legroom is an identical tie, no difference, though the Integra offers a significant 2.3-inch advantage in rear legroom, that's 5.8 centimeters if you like. It's 13.2 cubic feet of cargo capacity in the Mazda 3 and 24.3 cubic feet in the Integra, giving the Acura more than 11 cubic feet more cargo space than the Mazda 3 sedan. That's an advantage for the Acura of 46%. If you go with the Mazda 3 Sport hatchback, it's 20.1 cubic feet of cargo space, which still leaves the Integra in the lead for cargo space by more than 4 cubic feet.
So another thing that both of us noticed pretty much right off the bat here is to do with these seats.
The lumbar is like not in the right position or doesn't exist. I feel like I'm sitting in a hammock or something. Like there's no, like I got no...
You need more support, James.
I'm not cozied into the seat. I'm like at my uncle's house and I'm sitting in his 40-year-old chair.
Let me put that in perspective for you. What you're looking for here is more support, because I agree with you. I feel like I'm sitting more on the seat where I want to feel like I'm more sitting in the seat.
Yeah, like I feel like I'm like sliding around.
Right, so in a car like this, with the sporty reflexes that we've got going on here, you might expect a little bit more of a supportive seat to support the kind of driving style this car feels built for. The other thing I want to draw your attention to, though, if you're considering one of these, and you happen to be a driver that needs or enjoys a good bit of lumbar support, you're not going to find it here on these base model seats. There actually is no lumbar adjustment. And so when you're saying you feel like you're sitting in a hammock, I actually feel that in my lower back. I want this to be more solid and kind of pushed out more, and I want this to feel like it has more resistance against my weight.
Yeah, like this is where your lumbar support should be, but there's nothing there. It's just empty.
If you are going with a base model Integra like this one, I'd encourage you to make sure you're going to find these seats comfortable enough, especially for long distance drives.
The Integra's VTEC turbo engine is tuned for 91 octane gas. According to NRCan data, driving 100 kilometers in an Integra using the CVT transmission requires 7.4 liters of gas. And if you go with the manual transmission, you'll need 7.8 liters of premium to drive that same distance, making it just a little thirstier. So if you're a Canadian paying $1.90 a liter for premium gas and driving 25,000 kilometers per year, then it's an annual gas bill of $3,515 for an Integra with CVT. And the slightly thirstier manual makes it $3,700 even. So call it $200 more fuel per year if you go with the manual 6-speed. The 2.5-liter non-turbo engine in the Mazda 3 needs 7.5 liters of gas to drive 100 kilometers, virtually tying the Integra for fuel consumption. But then the Integra needs the pricier premium gas, but the Mazda doesn't. So assuming regular grade fuel costs $1.60 per liter in Canada, then driving that same 25,000 kilometers in the Mazda costs $3,000, a savings of something like $600 per year in gas versus the Integra. So compared to the Mazda 3's base non-turbo engine, the Integra makes about 3% more horsepower and 5% more torque, but needs about 20% more of your gas dollars to do it when we're comparing front-wheel drive models. With all-wheel drive and the standard non-turbo engine, the Mazda 3 needs 7.9 liters of gas to drive 100 kilometers, a little more than the 7.5 liters required to drive that same distance with front-wheel drive. If regular grade gas costs $1.60 per liter, the all-wheel drive traction should cost you less than $200 a year in additional fuel, and you're still coming in hundreds cheaper than the Integra. So with the Mazda, that's 100% more driven wheels for just 7% more of your gas dollars. If you run regular grade gas through the turbo engine in the Mazda with its standard all-wheel drive, then it's 8.9 liters of gas to drive 100 kilometers, or an annual fuel bill of $3,560, basically tying the annual fuel bill of an Integra with the CVT transmission. But here it's the Mazda's turbo engine with 13% more horsepower and 47% more torque for your gas dollars. So now you know how they compare on fuel cost, size, space, power, and price, but what's the drive like? You can watch my full road test report for both of these vehicles by clicking the links down in the description below if you're watching on YouTube. But here are some of my impressions to help you form yours. To me, the Acura feels livelier and more energetic at the controls, specifically the steering and brakes. The brake pedal feel and precision is excellent, similar to the Mazda, maybe a little sharper, and pretty much on par with what I'm expecting in a pricier performance car. The steering is relatively quick, and to my fingers on the lighter side. The Mazda is similar but to me feels a bit heavier, and the Integra's steering wheel feels sportier and slimmer in my hands. You can steer both of these cars down winding highways with just your wrists instead of your whole arm, and I think both will impress driving enthusiasts, but overall I found the feel of the Integra at the controls is more rewarding, especially when driving hard. The Mazda's high-performing turbo engine hits much harder for output than the Integra's. Though the Skyactiv turbo unit is fairly quiet and subtle, not much for revs, and likes to shove you into your seat but without making much of a big deal about it. The Integra's combination of turbocharging and high RPM VTEC breathing make it feel more designed to put on a show. To me, this engine feels livelier, more entertaining, and more engaging, especially where the soundtrack is concerned. The Integra's engine isn't as powerful as the Mazda 3 turbos, but I did find it more entertaining and much more effective at encouraging me to drive it hard. Where the ride is concerned, I found the Integra to be excessively noisy on certain rougher surfaces, with plenty of tire noise seeping into the cabin over coarsely textured pavement. The ride is a pleasing blend of athletic and comfortable, but sound levels could use some work in certain situations. On the same rougher roads, the Mazda 3 will tend to be a little smoother and quieter, though still leaning to the sporty side of the spectrum. I'd say you've got the superior lighting system in the Mazda, very crisp and powerful projectors that flood the highways with bright light, and include both a fast-acting auto high beam system and adaptive cornering functionality, which can be a game changer for safety and eye fatigue on winding, unlit northern highways. The Integra's fixed beam headlights are also powerful and confidence-inspiring, though I'd still give the edge to the Mazda for overall headlight performance. So which one would I buy? Well, this is tough primarily because the 6-speed manual is a major thing for me, and something I really appreciate having the option to buy in 2024, where there are hardly any manual-equipped cars left. And I am a major fan of the Integra's engine, too. I think by far the more entertaining of the pair. But in my part of the world, having all-wheel drive in your year-round car is very popular because of our winter conditions, and it's virtually a must-have for me. And with the Integra offering front-wheel drive only, it's sadly not going to make it onto my wish list. The bigger thing for me comes down to value for my gas money, and as we saw earlier, for about the same fuel bill as the Integra, I can run the much more powerful Mazda 3 Turbo with all-wheel drive. And though I'd love a 6-speed manual, and I love that snarling VTEC engine, to me the upfront price of the Mazda leaves a few $1,000s over for groceries, and I'm getting more power and torque and traction for my gas dollars too. But if you can do with front-wheel drive, and if you're okay with my fuel economy math, I think you'll find the Integra to be an even sharper and livelier drive than the Mazda. If you prefer a stealthy hot rod, the Mazda 3 Turbo is a better choice. If you prefer an engine that loves to party and sounds good doing it, the Integra is worth a closer look. Just mind its more sports car-like ride and noise levels. It's always nice to have choices.